This is a live channels television event.
Express protest against the government was for people to close streets, to burn tires, to revolt, to go to electricity distribution stations and there to shout and scream at them and throw stones sometimes. The most widespread theft in Georgia was theft of diesel generators from the balconies and or even from inside the buildings. And actually this was, and I mean people were revolting because obviously Soviet times at least there was electricity, and then it was post-Soviet period, and suddenly generation that grew up more or less in electricity and even central heating, they stayed without it. So the way how we started to tackle it, and of course it caused problem with water supply, with many other issues. Industrial output was dramatically down. Georgia was world champion in terms of reduction of the GDP in the 90s. We had in several years falling of GDP by 75%. So in that respect, we were really in very, very dire situation. And so what happened was that we took several steps. I mean, the first major step was, of course, to eradicate corruption. The former energy minister was arrested for corruption. There were a number of other people arrested. You know, it was not only just corruption, it was organized crime that was in that system. For instance, head of Tbilisi utility company was assassinated for trying to, squeeze out mafia from the system prior to my government when it took over. So we also investigate that crime. And actually what we did is to, first of all, go after corrupt officials. And the main scheme was that electricity was being produced by our hydropower plants, but it was sold through offshore to Russia and Turkey. Money was pocketed by corrupt officials, and they would not, and it would not, certainly the electricity would not be delivered, and money would certainly from sale of electricity also would not be delivered. So what we did is we first of all got rid of this scheme. We also went to privatize all our hydropower stations. Now in Georgia, we had this thing which many countries have, that people consider like that we had this list of strategic assets. So there would be a long list of strategic assets, including all the energy objects. And once the asset was deemed strategic, you were not allowed to, obviously, to sell it. But what it really meant that people didn't benefit from this asset. There were a number of corrupt government officials, and we had long strategic assets. We had hydropower plants, we had, of course, railway, and factories related to railway. We had a number of things like, like gold mines. So if you were, gold mine was government asset, but who benefited gold mine? The governor of that region and minister of that field, who were from time to time discovered with large stocks of golden, gold, of pure gold at their homes. From time to time, there would be scandal. But otherwise, and the same thing would be with the hydropower and electricity transmission lines. So we privatized them all, and we opened market for investment. We liberalized the tariffs. We certainly had an Energy Regulatory Commission that made sure that tariffs provided by private companies were not speculative. But of course, margin was left for private companies to be profitable. But the other important element was that we also built electricity lines. It was private-public partnership in all directions, to Turkey, which is energy hungry, obviously, to through Armenia to Iran, also to Azerbaijan, and also obviously we have line to Russia. And with all this lines, new markets. Also, Turkey, by the way, started to liberalize its market because it needed to get energy. We achieved that now that Georgia has this hydropower potential. We were utilizing only 13 to 14% of it. Now, with all new construction, we're going to 30%, but we have another 70% to go. So and this is not only just the population is supplied with electricity, but also what is very important that we have, this is one of the biggest potential for economic growth and FDI, is hydropower sector. Now, the other thing we did is that we got good exchange with every neighbor. It's very important not to give anybody monopoly on your supply. Obviously, our electricity comes from two sources, from gas-powered stations or from hydropower. Hydropower, most of it, but you need gas-powered turbines because there are peak times, obviously in winter and summer, there are fluctuations, and that's how we do it. But also, because there are fluctuations, say, we have surplus energy in summer, we have lack of energy in winter, but whilst, for instance, Iran has enough energy to give us in winter, if you have lines to exchange with them. Or the same concerns Turkey. So, but the main thing that there was a situation until our government that Russia was the only supplier of gas. And gas is this power tool for Russia, which is actively utilizing, also in Eastern Europe. When it's the sole supplier, it's very easy to blackmail the countries. But as soon as we made good lines with Azerbaijan through new pipeline that we built, as soon as we also managed to connect ourselves with Iran on a standby if we had needed to, also through Azerbaijan and Armenia, actually Russia discovered that it's no longer a sole supplier. We still provide for transit, there is a transit through Georgia territory of Russian gas to Armenia, but as a result, Georgia gets 20% of what Armenia gets for transit price, but basically the rest we buy, when we buy it at a lower price. Say, Armenia receives gas only from Russia, or until recently only from Russia. Armenia was paying twice as much as Georgia that was closer to Russia on the way to Armenia. Why? Because Georgia had other sources of supply. So you never want to depend upon one supplier because that gives it considerable leverage to exert pressure and to push you for undesirable results. So it was a combination of liberalization of the market. It was a combination of course, killing of corruption, which is connected, by the way, with liberalization and privatization. It was a combination of inter-regional ties in all different directions. And obviously it was also connected with political will to administer better, to get much more people involved in, much qualified people in doing administration of all these new lines. In a way, to sum up, Georgia has become, from being almost importer of most of its electricity and 100% of gas, net exporter of electricity, and obviously with gas, we have very diversified supply and long-term contracts at considerably lower prices than most of our other neighbors and partners. So that's what we achieved in our field, and needless to say, when I was head of Tbilisi government, and I was listening yesterday to Governor here, and when he mentioned number of streets that they lit up in Lagos, and I perfectly can understand Batatunde Raji Fashala for what he's saying, because I was head of local government of my capital. It's a place it's smaller than Lagos, 1.5 million people. And I can tell you that, it was a big trouble when we had dark streets. When I drove from the way to the airport, one thing I immediately noticed, buildings are dark. No window was lit up, and it's very depressing. And as a result, if you come today to my capital or to many other places in Georgia, they are overlit. They are one of the best lit places in the world. Well, because hydro is also cheaper. But we are doing it sometimes on purpose. Sometimes people were complaining they could sleep at night because too much light coming from the windows. But that's what really makes us to compensate for all these years of darkness, which was a very depressive period for my nation. And so I'm looking forward to the fact that this will be same here once you tackle most of the issues that you have, obviously, in this amazing country of Nigeria. Thank you.